Good morning. Good morning. What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Thank you very much for being here. Tuesday, May 26th. Hopefully everybody had a phenomenal weekend, a long weekend. And, listen, I enjoyed the day off. The extra day off, got to be honest. I enjoyed it. Cheers to everybody who's enjoying a nice cup of coffee. We got a lot to get into this morning. We got a lot to catch up on. A lot going on around the league. A lot going on, obviously, around the NBA. Some news around the Lakers over these last couple of days as well. All of a sudden, trade ideas. All of a sudden, big front office moves. So we got a lot of stuff that we're going to get into, and I appreciate you guys joining the show this morning. Give everyone a quick rundown what we got going on as I sip on this delicious coffee that I made myself. What we got going on for today. Give everyone a quick rundown. A lot of front office moves going on around the Lakers right now. Not only did they make an addition yesterday, but they're working on grabbing or getting another addition, which I think if you guys have listened to me, and I'm not the only one saying this, I think a lot of people are, one of the biggest advantages the Lakers can have with an ownership group that has deep pockets is they can really, really stockpile in their front office, and some of that's already happening. So we'll talk a little bit about that, what it means. By the way, it's also kind of interesting. The person that they added was in New Orleans. Nobody's ever heard of him. And then the moment he becomes a Los Angeles Laker, it's like every article that could possibly be written, it's like you found out a lot more about this guy just based on the fact that he's a part of the Los Angeles Lakers. So whatever that's worth. Luka named to first team All-NBA. I want to talk a little bit about Luka's first full season as a Los Angeles Laker. What people loved about it, what people were crazy about it, what people are excited about, maybe what people aren't excited about that comes with Luka Doncic. So we'll get a little bit into that. Was named first team All-NBA. Pretty damn remarkable compliment to be named first team All-NBA. Obviously, since he's been a part of the Lakers, this is his first season, first full season as part of the Lakers. So that obviously means something in itself. We'll get into that. ESPN had some trade ideas out there. I don't think the Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Lakers will be making a trade anytime soon. Now, some people would disagree with me. Was doing some prep with Eric, who produces the show. He's like, no, I don't think so. Now that Ime Udoka, we'll have our own conversation about that. But this specific trade idea found a way to grab Daniel Gafford and put him on the Los Angeles Lakers. Again, I think it's kind of one of those where I got no problem reading it. I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening for a number of different reasons. There's some more stuff out there about some potential interest in Robert Williams III. Should the Lakers be interested in him at the right price? So, I mean, that's talented, don't get me wrong, but has had a long history of injuries as well. So is that is that the starting center that you're hoping to build around? I might have to be sold on that one. Mark Medina, who covers the NBA and does a lot of work with a lot of different networks, is going to join us at about 8:30. And then we'll get into, obviously what's been going on around the league, around the NBA, some NBA stories, a little bit of a weekend recap. The Knicks absolutely demolishing the Cleveland Cavaliers on their way to the NBA Finals. They've won 11 games in a row in the playoffs. I don't know what their average margin of victory is, but it doesn't feel like any of these games are close either. So maybe we've been sleeping on the New York Knicks, who are now going to sit back. I mean, what is it? Game 5 tonight between the Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they've already put in, Eric, you might have even sent this to me. They've already put in the first date of the NBA Finals, but they're going to be waiting. Let's put it that way. They got a lot of time. I know it's somewhere here in our notes. Let me see if I can find it. Game 1 is on Wednesday, June 3rd, so a week from tomorrow. So the New York Knicks, they're going to be sitting back, fresh, ready to go. And the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs are going to continue to battle it out. So we got a packed show, like I mentioned, a lot of good stuff to hit on, including the NBA. Appreciate you guys being here. Let's keep growing this channel. 35,000 subscribers as we sit here today. a little bit over 35,000 subscribers. If you've yet to subscribe, please subscribe. If there's somebody that you know that you think would enjoy this content, want the content, please share it with them as well. Would greatly appreciate that. All right, let's take a look at a couple of comments. Get the show started from here. Let's see what we have here. Spike Lee is going to have a heart attack. Can you believe that? Can you? And by the way, this isn't just, to me, this has nothing to do with the Knicks just beating teams. The Knicks are demolishing teams. Now, listen, if they were in the Western Conference, would it be different? Sure, but they're not. So what does it matter to them how they get to the NBA Finals? You got to the NBA Finals. I mean, it's freaking impressive. And is there going to be a little bit of, you got this Royal Rumble going on in the Western Conference, everybody's beating up each other, that is there going to come a time where by the time you get to the finals, you're limping your way in? We'll see what happens. All right, let's see what else we have here. Lakers will not beat OKC or the Spurs next season. The best the Lake Show can do next year is make the Western Conference semifinals, and that's being super optimistic. See what happens over the offseason, right? Like let's give them an opportunity. And I don't disagree with you. I don't think there's anything you're saying there that is obviously the bigger surprise would be if the Lakers got to the Western Conference Finals. Let's use that as an example. But let's see what the offseason looks like. You never know what can happen during the season. Injuries are a part of the game. What if the Spurs and the Thunder met each other in the second round? What if it's a 1-4 matchup? I'm just making stuff up. So you have no idea. But I get the premise of what you're saying, and I don't have an issue with that, the premise of what you're saying. I don't understand how the criteria for the best players in the NBA is a one-dimensional player, okay? By the way, it's not like the first time we've ever seen this, that there are players out there that are predominantly more on the one-sided, or some guys, some of the best players in the league. Not all of them. I mean, of course, you want the Michaels, you want the Cobes, you want the LeBrons, you want some of these guys that obviously play both sides, but it's not like there have been plenty of other players that unfortunately are known for one side of the floor, and Luka will fall into that category. All right, let's get the show started. Thank you again for being here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Like, subscribe, and share. We greatly appreciate that. So yesterday, I'm trying to enjoy, this Memorial Day weekend, enjoying the Monday. Actually, kind of funny enough, I get a text from Brad Wallace, and he sends me this link, and it just says, Lakers hire rocket scientist. It's something like that, right? Like whatever the title is. I don't even know what that means. I don't know if Lakers are getting in business with SpaceX. I don't know what the Lakers are doing. I have no idea what's happening here. But sounds like a pretty smart guy. So let me give everyone just kind of a little bit of a background here. And, we could look at this story together. Eric, do me a favor. Pop up the story on ESPN. Just kind of have it a little bit in the background here. But the Lakers hire Rohan Ramadas as one of their new assistant GMs. So this was kind of like, you could call it one of the main stories around the Lakers yesterday. He comes from the Pelicans, was the VP of strategy and operations in New Orleans, and at least his most recent role. And again, you could see here, I'm going to kind of point out a couple of things here. His background is in aerospace, has a master's of science, bachelor of science, and astronautical engineering from USC. One quote, a Pelican source told ESPN, he's a literal rocket scientist. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody that this is the greatest move in the history of the organization, and they're now going to win 3 championships because of this front office hire. But here's what I will tell you, and we'll give a little background, and maybe you guys remember some of this, maybe you guys don't. But I remember when they first signed, or when the sale became official, and you knew it was going to be Mark Walter, and people would say, yeah, but look what he's done in baseball, and yeah, but in baseball it's not apples to apples, and you can't, obviously the Lakers can't do what the Dodgers are doing. And what I mean by that is it's a much more equal playing field when it comes to the NBA. This has been kind of one of their missions, and they want to have teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder or the San Antonio Spurs or the New York Knicks, who are in a big market. They want everyone to kind of have as best as they can equal chance of competing. And it's going to come down to how good is your front office, how much are your players making it happen, maybe lucky draft picks that you got, maybe developing, whatever the case is. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Where the Lakers can, where Mark Walter and their group can make a huge amount of impact on this franchise is loading up in the front office. And that's going to be, that was going to be one of the things that was going to be most important is, I don't feel comfortable that the way the Lakers front office is. And there was an article out there, and we could pop up, Eric, why don't you pop up the video of Rob Pelinka basically saying what he was looking for as far as loading up in the front office, and we'll play a little bit of sound here. But there was an article that JJ Redick was surprised how thin the Lakers front office was when he came over to the Lakers. I mean, I think it's safe to say right now in regards to the Lakers, they just need a lot more. And I think there's a lot of people that are also not sold on Rob Pelinka. I can make a case that, well, get Rob Pelinka, the resources that he needs, start really stockpiling in the front office, and then let's see what happens over these next couple of years. But it's safe to say, I don't think the Lakers, from an analytics perspective, from a scouting perspective, it feels like they're behind in a lot of different categories. And where there is no cap space and when there is no salary cap is what you do in your front office. So I do think that, obviously it's great that the Lakers are focusing their attention in the front office. Last week, we talked about how they went after the assistant GM of the Minnesota Timberwolves who turned them down. And then here they're grabbing somebody, one of the, obviously assistant GMs, Rohan Ramadas is coming in as an assistant GM with the Lakers. Now, if you told me, again, I know nothing about nothing here. I don't know anything about these front office personnel. But if you told me, would I rather have somebody that's in the front office of the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Pelicans, I would tell you the Minnesota Timberwolves, because I feel like obviously they've had a lot more success. But you can find a diamond right here that we don't know about. Take a listen. This is Rob Pelinka during their exit interviews talking about what the Lakers were looking for in the front office and how they were going to stockpile. Take a listen.
We don't list and won't start the president of listing of all the hires we do within data and strategy and analytics and scouting and medical scouting. We've made numerous hires already that just aren't ones that we publicly disclose, but there's been a build out going on. The biggest positions that I mentioned in my answer to Dan is we will hire 2 assistant general managers. That's the plan. One of the general managers would be over sort of player draft and evaluation processes. That's pro scouting, draft scouting, player development. The other AGM would be more on the strategy side, which is cap, analytics, and data. And again, it's not that we've had holes in those places. We've got a great team of people that works incredibly hard. It's just we want to add more to that. And for both those AGM positions, we have started a wide search and have begun interviews, but haven't hired out either of those.
All right, so that's Rob Pelinka. This was during the exit interview, so good stuff there to grab so we can just play and kind of give everyone kind of idea what their vision was by then. And now it's starting to happen. So as far as this specific player, I'll read a little bit more here. This Pelican source, he's a literal rocket scientist. While working for the Pelicans, Ramadas implemented AI and coded models to aid the front office, the sources told ESPN. Ramadas was a draft analysis in the Miami Heat 2016-2017 and was an analytics consultant for the first 7 years with the Pelicans and was promoted to Senior Director of Analytics and Innovation in 2024. So clearly that's going to be, obviously what he's going to be doing with the Lakers. So more front office changes probably coming. There's been rumors that the Lakers, according to Mike Scotta from Hoops Hype, that they've already interviewed, that there are other candidates for the second assistant GM role. 76ers assistant GM, Prosper Karangwa. I'm going to just read these off again. We don't know these people, but we know obviously the Lakers are paying a ton of attention in their front office. They also interviewed, or in the process, again, people that are linked to the Lakers, according to Mike Scotta, Heat Vice President of Player Personnel, Eric Amsler. And then the last person I'll point out here, Jazz VP of Player Personnel, Bart Taylor. I'll go back to kind of what I said from the beginning. Clearly, the Lakers are being very active in the front office. This is what they need to do This is Mark Walter's first off season with the Los Angeles Lakers, and I think it's very wise that the man is saying we clearly got to, stock up in the front office. And this to me is how the Lakers are going to become the Lakers that they need to be. It's not because they went out there and drafted one player. It's not because they went out there and signed one player. It's not because they went out there and found somebody in free agency. The way the Lakers are going to become the franchise that everybody wants them to be, every Laker fan wants them to be, they got to improve their front office. So now listen, it's fair if you're saying, yeah, Al, but I still don't like the idea that Rob Pelinka is in front of this entire thing. That's fine. I mean, you can make that argument. I'm okay with that. But nonetheless, this is something that the Lakers have to do, and they're in the middle of doing. I did list all this as well. This is list of the front office hires since Mark Walter became majority owner of the Lakers. Tony Bennett, which is the draft advisor. Obviously, Rohan Ramadas, assistant GM that we just talked about, focusing on salary cap, data, and analytics. If you want to add this as well, obviously the Andrew Friedman, Farhan Zayadi, those are the advisors that are at least, right now kind of consulting the Lakers. And then what else they've done on the business operations, Lon Rosen, Michael Spetner, and then Ryan Cantor. Some of these are on the business side, VP of Global Partnerships. So that's what the Lakers front office has done so far. So I think encouraging. This isn't, what you can't do is there's a lot of companies out there that are, they are cutting corners, I guess you want to call it. If you're the Lakers and your front office, you can't cut corners, and it sounds like they're starting to clean up that act. And frankly, I think a lot of people thought for the Lakers in the past, they were cutting corners when it came to a front office perspective, and now's the time, obviously, for the Lakers to make that change. I'm going to read a few comments here, and then I want to start talking a little about Luka. We got a number of other things that we want to get into as well. Rob's time with the Lakers is limited. Despite winning a chip in 2020 and signing Luka, letting Caruso leave and signing Westbrook was inexcusable. Okay? Let's get some more in here. Yeah, I knew it. This is a move for their analytics team. Lakers will be relying on AI and machine learning to do their scouting. Are these Pelinka and bus hires and candidates, or Walters that determines everything? That's a good question. That's actually a good question. Let's put it this way. I would be shocked at this point, and I understand, I think Genie governor for the next 5 years or so. I'd be shocked if moves aren't happening without the blessing of Mark Walter. I'd be shocked. I really would. And I think part of me says that because who's paying for all these guys? Wouldn't it be Mark Walter and his group that are paying for any additions to the front office and everything else? If you're Mark Walter and you just took over a team, don't you want to hire all these front office personnel? The reason why I think it's impossible that these individuals are not part of Mark Walter, I'll give you an example. The Lon Rosen thing is a good example. Lon Rosen came from the Dodgers. Okay, well, clearly that's not a bust hire. That's a Mark Walter hire. So I'd be shocked that all of this is not coming specifically from Mark Walter and his group. So again, it's not the sexiest story, and it's not supposed to be, but when you have a franchise now starting to commit a lot of their resources towards the front office, I think that's the right thing, and I think that's a good move in the right direction for the Lakers. Okay, let's keep moving here. We got too many other topics to just stop right there, but obviously I do think that's important news. Lakers front office moves and what they're able to do, and we go from there. Luka Doncic makes first team All-NBA. So he was named the 2025-2026 All-NBA first team. Kind of an interesting season for Luka, right? This is his first full season as a Laker. He comes out absolutely balling. Comes out in just phenomenal shape. You can't ask for him to be in any better shape before the season started. I'll read off some of the accolades here. 5th NBA player in history to earn 6 first-team honors by age 27 of younger. Let's see what else we have here. 6 all-team and all-NBA first-team selection of his career, first in the Lakers uniform. We know what he was able to do last year. 64 games for the Lakers, averaged 33 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Broke a franchise record with threes. And that's with him just playing 64 games. So obviously we know what he could have done. And we could, kind of look at all the individual accolades for Luka Doncic. But Here's where I'll stop with the Lakers, or I'll stop with Luka and I'll stop with Laker fans. I'll get your guys' opinion on this. What did you guys make of his first full season as a Laker? Because I think for me, watching Luka every single day, there's a couple things that come through my mind. And I'll tell you the first things that come to my mind with Luka. The first things that, watching him again for 64 games, watching the Lakers when he's not there, watching the Lakers when he is there, watching the impact he has on a game, everything else. Here are a few of the things that come to my mind when I think of Luka, watching him this past year. He's one of the few killers in the league. Like, one of my favorite things of watching Luka Doncic is he's one of those players that you don't see too often in the NBA, where he's got that killer gene in him. He likes taking out teams. He likes smelling blood in the water. He likes being the guy in maybe a little bit more uncomfortable spot, kind of go for the kill. Clearly the future of the Lakers. I think the other thing that stuck out to me this year, watching Luka on a night in, night out basis, is you got to hurry up and surround this team around Luka. And you really, really got to find the right pieces around Luka. Because one thing that I will say in watching Luka every single night, I mean, obviously the guy's got he's got just an unbelievable skill set. One of the best players in the league, no question about it. He can put your squad on his back and lead you to W's on a night in, night out basis. But he's also got flaws, right? So that's why when I say you got to build around this guy and hurry up and build around him, one of the things Luka Doncic is he could be a liability on the defensive side. So because of that, the way Dallas used to build around, and this is going to kind of lead to one of my other topics here, the way the Dallas Mavericks used to build around Luka Doncic, and you can't do it identical. And, obviously the league is constantly changing, and the Western Conference is probably better. Not probably. The Western Conference is harder today than it was when Luka got to the NBA Finals with the Dallas Mavericks. And the path to make the finals today will be a lot more difficult moving forward because of the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I thought the Luka Doncic experience, I think for a lot of Laker fans out there, I thought it was an enjoyable watch. I thought, obviously the guy he's an unbelievable player. I thought he made this past season, it was fresh. It was different. It was, there's some times where you just kind of there's no way you're going to stop this guy. I thought for the most part, for me, I thought it was a phenomenal experience watching Luka Doncic. But I also know that in order for the Lakers to make some real noise, they got to almost have a perfect team around him, right? You got to have the right players. And the Lakers, clearly their roster does not indicate, it doesn't show what a perfect roster would be around Luka. I thought, again, 53 wins. I thought there was a lot of great things they accomplished. And then, it all kind of ended on April 2nd. The moment Luka Doncic got injured, it was a wrap. There was nothing really else to talk about during the season. And I think for the Lakers, obviously, that's the thing that most people will stick out is when you, as many times as you lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder, were you really in competition of competing for a championship? Probably not. As great as Luka is, he's got his flaws. I think there was a lot to take away from Luka's first season as a Laker. I enjoyed it. It was fun. And the Lakers got kind of a ways to go before they could compete for a chip. And that's why it's going to be more and more important for the Lakers to try to kind of figure out and find a way how they could build around Luka. But this first full season with Luka, gets first team All-NBA, clearly one of the top 5 players in the NBA. And now it's going to be a matter of how do you go from this step to where the Lakers are with Luka Doncic to the next step where you feel like you're one of the top 3 teams that got a shot of coming out of the Western Conference. That's obviously not the case for the Lakers right now. So that experience, I think watching obviously Luka, I think a lot of people would share a lot of similar things as far as what Luka was able to do in his first year. Let's see what we got here. Luka is not that bad on defense and rebounds. Look, rebounding, he's good. He's actually going to have 7, 8 rebounds. There's going to be a lot of times where he leads the Lakers in rebounding. He's one of those players where he's going to crash the glass every time. It's similar to LeBron. He's going to crash. Magic was the same way. Like there's certain players that comes with their It comes with their repertoire, comes with their strength. They're going to crash the glass. His defense, listen, it's again, that's why I think there's always conversation about him and AR. It's like, all right, you could have one guy that's not going to be known for their defense, but can you have two? And I don't think you can. I mean, I think it's going to be really difficult for the Lakers to obviously, with those two guys in your backcourt, unless every other piece makes sense. So it's going to take a little bit of a magic act to make that happen. We'll see if they're able to do that. Luka's an unbelievable talent, and he could be so much more. Complaints to the refs, you're right about that. I don't know how I didn't include that, because there was a big part of this season that I spent a lot of time in the post-game shows where I'm like, all right, I can't do this complaining to the referees, because he does it a ton. Luka complains to the refs, his bad defense and his bad shots to check if he's hot or not really drop him from MVP contention. I think comes with the territory. Let me give you an example. Kobe take bad shots. Kobe used to take some terrible shots, but Kobe was also as confident as anybody else when it came to, obviously what he brought to the table. So I think it's a fair assessment. I think it's a fair conversation, but I also think a lot of these great players, they have a tendency to take bad shots. They have a tendency to ask, hey, am I still hot? What type of rhythm am I in? I think that comes with the territory. And I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that's going to be part of, Luka's game. That's going to be part of Luka's game. I don't think that's going anywhere. Yeah, Luka reminds me of the Showtime Lakers. Let's get one more in here. Look at SGA. He has to do some heavy lifting because his bench is getting shorter. SGA had the easy path to the MVP with a deep bench. He's finding it's not as easy without them. Also playing against the San Antonio Spurs, what would the Lakers have looked like if they went up against that squad? And I think there's a good point to what you're making here. The Thunder are so deep and they got so many different players that SGA's got a lot of help. He's got a ton of help, a lot more help than obviously Luka had. Okay, we're going to get to our guests here in just a second. Mark Medina is going to come join us. Before we do, let me give a little bit of love to one of our partners here, one of the OGs here. Shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. I want to give everyone a quick story, something that happened last week, and this is a perfect example. I hope nobody ever needs an injury attorney. I hope no one ever needs Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. But things happen in life. I think it was last Monday, I get one of our listeners, loyal listener, that reaches out to me, sends me a personal email and says, Al, something happened, family member. Can you please make an introduction to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm? I screenshot that. I send it to Brad Wallace. Immediately, he has his team reach out to the listener, and they're working together. And like I said, I hope nobody ever needs him, but things do happen in life. And I just want you guys to know you got the best in the business if something does happen. You, a family member, or a friend, the website is wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Go to that website. You can fill out a free consultation form, or I'm happy to make an introduction. He's been in the business for over 10 years. Somebody I've known for 6 years, was with me when I was on radio, now is with me independently as well. So shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. He can help anybody in the state of California. And like I said, you could send me a personal email and I'm happy to make an introduction. Thank you again to our listeners for trusting in us and our partners. And again, shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. All right, I want to get to one of our guests today. Has been on the guest frequently, nice enough to make some time to come on. So let's welcome in Mr. Mark Medina himself.
Alan, congrats back. Round of applause. Thanks for having me. Always honored to join you.
What's up, buddy? How are you?
What's up? Seeing the New York Knicks get to the finals for first time since 1999.
All right, let's. I'm okay to that jumping off point real quick on the Knicks. I don't know what you thought coming into the postseason, but let me tell you what I did not have on my guesses is that they'd win 11 playoff games in a row and absolutely taking out squads in the process. I'm going to give credit where credit's due. And I've kind of said this before. I was kind of hating on the Knicks here. Not kind of. I was hating on the Knicks. Freaking impressive, man. Give credit where credit's due. The Knicks look phenomenal. Maybe they've got a legitimate shot of winning this whole thing.
Yeah, I didn't have this on my bingo card either. I mean, to probably Lakers fans' delights that this didn't happen, I thought that the Boston Celtics would get to the NBA Finals because Jason Tatum's back and they were playing at such a high level before that. But to your point with the Knicks, not only are they just blowing away the competition, even if the competition's been diminished, It's the largest point differential in NBA history. They've
Wow.
beaten teams by an average of just under 24 points a game. And again, I'm fully well aware that the opponents that they faced had their own flaws. I mean, most notably, we saw Cleveland just be a hot mess and squander so many opportunities here, and they did not show up to play in Game 4. But to your point, give credit where credit is due as well. The Knicks, they've been an elite defensive team since January, and they've finally gotten the offensive chemistry going as of late.
Oof. Yeah, it's and now they sit back and wait for a little over a week. They wait for the Western Conference to kind of beat themselves up and see what comes out there. I'll ask you, I'll hit on that series kind of towards the end of our conversation, but let's start with this. What did you make of the activity around the Lakers front office and hiring a new assistant GM and looking to hire a second new assistant GM, which I know isn't breaking news because Rob Pelinka had mentioned that they're going to be active in the front office. But what do you make of some of that news yesterday, signing somebody from New Orleans who's a literal rocket scientist? Just kind of your thoughts on the activity, the attention going towards the front office.
Yeah, well, Alan, to your point, this is certainly not surprising. Rob Pelinka alluded to this during the exit meetings, but I think it's also not surprising ever since new ownership has been involved with the Dodgers ownership group under Mark Walter that this would happen because they're an ownership group that's known to spend money. There's a lot of different reasons to it, but the main reason with previous ownership under the Bust family is, they had less money to work with. And so one of their strategies a lot of times was being more economical with behind the scenes staff and resources. And so this was expected, but obviously a good move in the right direction. And to your point, their recent hire with Rohan Ramadas, ESPN had quoted a Pelican source saying he's a literal rocket. He spent a lot of time in the Aerospace Corporation before his time in New Orleans. So there's a lot of good background and bright minds joining the Lakers front office.
What do you think it means? What do you think? Because I think for a lot of fans, I think fans understand, obviously the importance of having a deep front office and having as many basketball minds as you possibly can, competing minds that are being a little bit more creative and everything else. But from your perspective, what do you think it means if we're sitting here a year from now and all of a sudden the Lakers went from a front office that's super thin to adding as many tools as they possibly can and getting as many basketball minds? Just how do you think that can translate eventually on the floor and can have its success?
Yeah, well, I think it hits a bunch of different buckets. It goes into evaluating both prospects and existing NBA talent, evaluating analytics and how best to use those players, both from a number standpoint and then player development. I think the interesting thing is historically, the Lakers have had a pretty good track record with evaluating and drafting draft prospects and player development. The challenge has been, partly because of salary cap concerns, second apron, and just prioritizing finances of retaining players that aren't star players. But I think that the more resources you have, as well as in other departments with behind the scenes staff, training staffs, that's going to maximize everyone's availability and being the best versions of themselves. I think when you're looking at the Lakers, they've never, shied away from spending on the elite superstars and prioritizing that, but they haven't always shown the same level of commitment elsewhere. And so I think with that, it's that's what you have to do in today's NBA. There's a lot of ownership groups have a lot deeper pockets, and therefore they're willing to devote more resources to that. And so to compete in today's NBA, you have to do that, especially given the fact, ironically, you have to be able to spend money, but it has to be resourced sometimes elsewhere because there are these spending restrictions on actual player payroll. So the more resources you have on winning on the margins is going to maximize your odds in actually winning a championship.
Luka was named first team All NBA. Before you came on, I was talking a little bit about, Luka's first full season as a Laker. Give me some of your description of his first full year, the things you love, the things that you think he's got to improve on, just what was your first full year seeing Luka Doncic as a Los Angeles Laker? What was that experience like?
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't surprising given what we've seen in Luka Doncic's career, but to see it day in and day out up close was pretty special. And so what the highlights were is he's the best scorer in the NBA, and he can do it at all three levels. I mean, we know that he's best known for scoring with that patented step back and pull ups, but he's good at driving to the rim. He's good at drawing fouls. I think for the most part, by initiating contact and using angles as opposed to selling calls. And even though he's a high volume scorer shooter, he's really good at making other teammates better. He's always looking for the lob threats, but also getting guys easy baskets. So those are the main highlights. I think in between we saw some defensive growth, not enough to make an all defensive team, but at least for there to be enough progress with his steals, his improved engagement and effort level. But I think, the things moving forward, he can always improve defensively. The technicals, that's always been a thing with him throughout his career of how you find the sweet spot of picking your spots with the refs without, compromising your competitive, intensity for himself and the group. I think, the Lakers and every team, obviously the Dallas Mavericks, they've mostly learned that the benefits vastly outweigh the cost. So everything about Luka, for the most part, is overwhelmingly positive. Now moving forward, it's just about what the Lakers can do with finding the right talent around him so that he can make that championship push.
Yeah, that's going to be, it's a conversation I think we could take in so many different directions. I'm with you. Listen. I thought watching Luka, it was like, yep, that's the guy, right? Like there's certain players, and you've watched basketball your entire life, right? And there's certain players that you just watch, and especially for Laker fans, as spoiled as this franchise is, of just having so many unbelievable players rock the purple and gold, and just watching Luka. I would say my favorite Luka moments are that he's got this like, yeah, I'm going to go for the kill right now. Like only a handful of players in the NBA know when to go for the kill, have the ability of going for the kill. And like, there's just a feel for the game. It's like, yeah, he's about to end this game right now. One of the best killers, obviously, in the league. My question, I think, to you, and based off of what the Lakers have right now, is it possible, you think, to truly compete with the Spurs and the Thunder with kind of the infrastructure that they have? And I'm talking about Reeves being there. I'm talking about LeBron being there and some of these other role players. Or do you think it's going to take some significant changes to become a team that's legitimately in the conversation with the Spurs and the Thunder? And by the way, this isn't just the Laker problem. The whole league is trying to figure out how to be in the conversation, probably with the Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Maybe the Knicks right now feel like they are, but do you feel like the infrastructure that they have around, the bones of it is a team that can truly compete with them?
Well, I think as we saw in their, second round exit to the Thunder, the difference between both teams is really stark. Obviously, you have to account for the fact that Luka Doncic was not available during the playoffs because of injuries. But even though the Lakers would have largely welcomed his presence and would have benefited from it, we saw during the regular season, the gulf between the Lakers and the Thunder was still pretty deep, even when Luka was on the floor. That game when he and Austin Reeves got hurt, they were already trailing by 31 points at halftime. So it's clear that there's a lot of work to be done. But I think Rob Pelinka alluded to this in his exit and a season exit interviews, that replicating the model that the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's just not applicable, because the way they got to where they are is they went through rebuilding and tanking, and the Lakers aren't in that position. But the good thing is, like what the Thunder and the Spurs have right now, they have a good starting point. If you already have clarity on who your generational star number one franchise player is for the foreseeable future. So the Lakers have that in Luka Doncic, but they can't go through the player development route in banking on the NBA draft and having a lot of picks because they're just not in that position. So it's more about, reloading on the fly with, good roster talent around them, with respectable rotation players. And, to your point, with Austin Reeves and LeBron James, seeing from a financial standpoint, how do you keep those two together? With Austin, it's a different conversation because philosophically there aren't spending limitations with him. And with LeBron, it's a different conversation because of that. But how do you find that sweet spot of being really deliberative with your resources, partly so you can have better talent around LeBron, but without, making him feel disrespected for his obvious body of work. And same thing with LeBron. Like, where do you find those priorities and understanding you're not going to be making $52.6 million as he did this past season? But still recognizing your worth with your body of work, what you can do for a box office draw, but showing your willingness to take some relative pay cut to help the Lakers build the right roster around. So those are the puzzle pieces that the Lakers have to figure out, and that's much different than the puzzle pieces that the Thunder and the Spurs had to figure out. For them, it was about drafting right and player development. The moment they get out of the draft.
Yeah, it's a good observation. Obviously, paths are completely different, and other teams feel like they can take a step to rebuild, and the Lakers, always feel like they're sometimes chasing their own tail because they feel like they got to compete every single year, and it's especially now with obviously Luka on the roster.
And if you don't mind me adding here, I mean, it's not like, oh, it's the Lakers, they're only about championships, they can't go through rebuilding. It's more the circumstances. As you know, they went through rebuilding a decade ago, like shortly prior to Kobe Bryant's retirement, and then a few years after that. But they turned those players partly into getting LeBron James. So they're just in a different pathway right now as far as the circumstances.
And it's more common for the Lakers to be trying to win today, whether and other franchises can maybe go under the radar, like the Thunder during their rebuild or the Spurs in their rebuild, and you get a little fortunate. Sure, you got. And by the way, both those franchises are ran well, so it's not apples to apples. There have been teams trying to rebuild for the last 10 years and are still rebuilding, right? And I don't know when they get out of it. I want to, when we get to the offseason, obviously there are trade ideas that jump up. I want to share one with you and get your opinion on this. We could kind of talk this through together. Eric, let's put up the ESPN article. There was an article out there, NBA offseason, 6-star trade ideas to shake up the summer. And one of these is basically including, and we'll look at it together, Bobby Marks and Zach Cram put up a Lakers trade idea. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think it's going to happen for multiple reasons, but I'll share it with you and we could look at it together. One of the trades out there was, here, maybe we could time this perfectly here as we get it up. One of the trade ideas was the Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks doing a deal together. Now, I'm going to ask a couple different questions on this. The idea is Daniel Gafford goes to the Lakers, and the Dallas Mavericks get Jared Vanderbilt, Dalton Connect, and a 2026 first-round pick, which is at number 25. First off, I have no idea why the Dallas Mavericks would accept a trade like this. This is just a personal opinion here. You could share yours as well. That's number one. Number two, I'll ask you this. I know it's a whole different regime, and I know now, things are run. Nico Harrison is gone. Jason Kidd is gone. Masai Ujiri has taken over. Are the Mavs making a deal with the Lakers anytime soon? Just from that premise, do you think that's happening or no?
I don't think that's happening because of what we just saw with the Luka Doncic trade. But even to your point that it's a new front office, Masai Ujiri has a proven track record with the Toronto Raptors. I just don't see that trade happening. I mean, Dalton Connect, there's a reason that he hasn't gotten a lot of playing time because there's been a distrust with his decision-making, how he plays defensively, the strength that he had coming out of the draft as a shooter. That's great, but you never quite knew what you were going to get with that. Jared Vanderbilt, it makes sense that, you don't see a future with him with the Lakers because his playing time was very inconsistent. And the reasoning that JJ Redick had with that is that even though they respected what he brought defensively, the shot just wasn't there at the baseline enough even to just be a respectable threat or even floor spacer. But I think that there's concerns about his durability because of his overall history. First round picks are first round picks, so that's great. But I mean, Daniel Gafford's a really respected center. And so, yeah, I just don't see that deal happen. It'll be great if the Lakers can get that, because I think he would be an upgrade over DeAndre Ayton, but I don't see that deal going through.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. This was one of their 6 that they had on there. This wasn't. I mean, listen, this is different. If I'm sitting in my garage and I'm like, hey, you know what? I got a trade idea. I mean, that's different. But this one kind of threw me off because I'm with you. I think number one, if Daniel Gafford's available, I think he's got value around the league. I think there are a lot of teams that would offer more that's of interest to the Dallas Mavericks. And I go back to this, and not everybody would agree with this. I don't think the Dallas Mavericks and the Lakers are making a trade anytime soon. And I don't care that the front office changed. If it was a smaller deal where it's just like a pick swap or something, okay, that's different. But to apply Daniel Gafford, who was a player that had success with Luka Doncic, I find that very, very hard to believe. If the Lakers are able, if this is a deal that were to happen, I think most people would sit back and be like, wait a minute here. Again, like there's another deal between these two franchises. That one threw me off a little bit. Again, it's not something, it's on ESPN, so I'm not, making this one up. But again, I from a front office perspective, I feel like it's going to be a few years before the Mavs and the Lakers are making another deal.
Yeah, and I think that you brought up an excellent point that Luka obviously has really great history with Daniel Gafford. If you're making trades in this current present time, there is this inherent advantage that the Lakers have because Luka already has history with all these players. And to be clear, like any player that plays with Luka is automatically going to be better because the way Luka plays. But when you already have that baseline familiarity, that makes the trade even less equitable.
What do you make of I heard Robert Williams, the third name, his name be involved around the Lakers. Again, this is just more conversation. Actually, Bobby Marks, who was on 710. What do you make of that name and what kind of fit that would be for the Lakers?
I love Robert Williams III. I mean, we saw when he was with Boston, he's a great rim protector. He's someone that, plays really well with teammates, and he's not someone that needs to have the ball. Like, he is not an offensive focal point. The way he produces is just all energy plays, putbacks, rebounds, all those things. So that intangible piece I love. And I think that what we saw with DeAndre Ayton, he showed a lot of growth this season, but it came in spurts. It came in kind of starts and stops.
Yeah.
Some of the things that influence how well of a game he played is if he felt he was engaged offensively, and that's just I don't think it was good for him because he's trying to redeem his career. But two, when you have a team with Luka Doncic and LeBron James and Austin Reeves, like you're not going to be the primary offensive option here. And I know that some would say, well, you got to feed the big, you got to keep him engaged. Or remember what Shaq would say. Well, DeAndre Ayton isn't Shaq. So from that standpoint, I think the fit with Robert Williams III is great. He has a lot of injury history, so that is something that you have to keep in mind from an availability standpoint. But as far as X's and O's and rolls, I think that would be a great option.
28 years old. By the way, you're right about the injuries. I mean, look at the amount of games he's played by year. 32, 29, 52, 61 is his high point. 35, 6, 20, and 59. So he's definitely, unfortunately for him, and this happens in the league, and hopefully this is not his full story, but it's obviously common to have a lot of players just end up with these types of injuries that can never kind of get their footing. Okay, I think, look, I think from a Laker perspective, just throwing out a couple of names, talking a little bit about the front office, I'll shift my attention here. Let me give you one more quick question on the NBA. Thunder and the Spurs tied 2 apiece. Tonight they play at 5:30. That game's on NBC Peacock. I think like most NBA fans, this has kind of been must-watch TV. Even the blowouts, if I'm being honest with you, it's like, all right, well, the strategy between these two teams, feel bad that the Thunder are dealing with some injuries because they are. AJ Mitchell, I know, is out for tonight's game. Jalen Williams is questionable. Spurs had some injuries early on. They seem to get Dylan Harper and De'Aaron Fox back. Who's got the edge right now? Series tied 2 apiece. Who do you think has the edge?
Well, technically, the Thunder have the edge because they have home court advantage, but I think the Spurs have the edge because not just that the fact that they're coming off a win, but they seem in a better position when you're looking at the whole series trends. Victor Wembanyama, franchise player, he's been more consistent than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. SGA has not been the efficient player that we've seen, through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs and the regular season. In fairness, the Spurs are a much different challenge that the Thunder have seen versus any opponent because the Spurs have had a lot of success both in the regular season in this playoff series, but superstar to superstar, Wemby has had the edge. I think philosophically the Thunder have so much depth. I mean, I think in game 3, they had like 76 bench points. So they are, enjoying kind of this embarrassment of riches of having an ability to absorb injuries to someone, most notably to Jalen Williams, lesser extent, AJ Mitchell. They have, just this great combination of being able to go deep in a rotation. Everyone buys in with fluid playing time. They know their roles. But I think that as of late, the Spurs have been able to take their game to another level. I think the other thing is Chet Holmgren, who's, the Thunder's second option versus, say, any combination with the Spurs, probably Dylan Harper because of the injuries at the beginning with De'Aaron Fox. There's been more consistency there. I mean, Chet Holmgren has not been the same player, and part of that is because of Victor Wembanyama's presence. So I think the thing that we have to just keep in mind is this is a playoff series. I mean, this is likely going to go 7 games. There's so many ebbs and flows, different trends that happen each game that it's all subject to change. But as we're speaking right now, the developments that the Spurs have shown have left me more impressed with them than what I've seen with the Thunder.
All right, Mark Medina. Let me go through the list here. Part of Fadeaway World, Forbes Sports, Athlon Sports. On TV, you can catch him on Sports Central LA, Spectrum as well, and then radio, Fox Sports Radio. Mark, always enjoy the insight. Always enjoy having you on, brother. Thank you for coming on the show, and I'm sure we'll be chatting soon here in the offseason.
Al, looking forward to it, and always a pleasure talking with you.
All right, buddy. That is Mark Medina right there. Good stuff from Mark. Certainly breaking down. Love his perspective on, obviously not just the Lakers, but the NBA as well. So great stuff from him right there. Okay, let's take a look. We got some of the comments here. I got 9 o'clock. I got to be out of here. So let's take a quick look here and try to get as many comments as we can. With a robust front office, the Lakers are more likely to find hidden gems in the draft and free agency. A blockbuster trade is not going to win us a championship anytime soon. Well, maybe it could be a combination of the two as well. I think, all angles have to be in play for the Lakers. And I think that the angle that you're referring to here in the beginning about finding a hidden gem in the draft and free agency is critical. It's always going to be critical for them. So that's, obviously a piece of the pie that has not, I think, been a part of the Lakers' tendencies. And again, add as many people as you can to the front office and see what you can do from there. Let's see what else we have here. I haven't watched basketball since the Lakers got eliminated. Tell you something, brother. You're missing a great series between the Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder. You really are. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal series between the two. Those two teams. The franchise is no longer about championships, giving players not playing defense a pass. Guys, Luka's he's top 5 player in the world. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I'm not trying to tell you that that he's a top 5 player in the world. And you need top 5 players in the world to eventually win championships. So let's see how they build obviously around him. I'm going to go back real quick to that Daniel Gafford trade idea. I honestly, I don't get really the angle. I don't see why the Dallas Mavericks would A, trade away Daniel Gafford to the Los Angeles Lakers, and B, for that trade for Vando, Dalton Connect, and a first-round pick. No, thank you. I mean, if I'm the Dallas Mavericks, of course. But the Lakers are obviously it's going to be so critical for them to try to get that type of a player, that type of a big. I think what Mark was saying there about, specifically about the idea and the concept of, I think the idea and the concept of DeAndre Ayton, and you can't really rely on him. I agree with, I don't think anybody, and I don't think too many Laker fans would disagree with that. I think OKC repeats as champions. All right, let's do this. This is a good segue here as we get into some of the NBA news, and we continue to obviously talk this kind of more around the NBA news, do a little bit of a weekend recap as well. We could do that right now. How good has the NBA, the Western Conference, the East, to be honest with you, I'm like barely watching any of these games. I don't know. They're just not doing anything for me. It hasn't done anything for me. I'm not interested in either one of these teams, so that probably has something to do with it as well. So that probably has a lot to do with it. By the way, our weekend recap, of course, is presented by Brad Wallace, the Wallace Firm, wallacewins.com/Sleba. Let's talk real quick about the Spurs and the Thunder. So first two games split in OKC, first two games in San Antonio, obviously split as well. OKC having that big game 3 win, and then the Spurs bouncing back in game 4. I didn't know this. Let's play this real quick. Yeah, we got some time. Let's play De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox was on NBC on that post-game show. Listen to what he said about Greg Popovich. I was not aware of this story. I did not know. Take a quick listen about how Greg Popovich was involved in Game 4.
Has Pop, with you being down 2-1, or even before the series, has Pop come in that locker room say he needs some nastiness? Yo,
yeah, you play here. We lost Game 3, and I think that was Pop's been around like throughout the course of the season, but that was the first time he walked into the locker room and was like, "Nah, that's BS. That's not how we play basketball." And obviously, he has some choice words for it, but that was the first time all season that he came into the locker room right after a game and told us how he felt. And everybody felt that. You know, Mitch was in there, B. Wright was in there, all the players down to the staff. You know how it is after a game. And then that's the first time I've ever seen that. Like trainers, everybody's in there. We close the doors.
Let him go.
Yeah, we don't let anybody know what's going on in here, but that's the first time he opened that door. We see Pop come in, and it's like,
The Pop effect. I love that. The godfather of the San Antonio Spurs, right? Greg Popovich coming in after their loss in Game 3 and said, that's bullshit. And they came out and, made it happen in Game 4. Game 5 tonight. This is just a phenomenal series so far. Again, this has been it's been a fun one to watch. Game 5 at 5:30 tonight. And, I'm going to lean with Mark Medina on this. I think there's a little bit of an edge that goes to the San Antonio Spurs in these final 3 games. So it's going to be kind of interesting how things lay out. Does whoever win this game win the series? I mean, I picked San Antonio in 7. So I don't think even if the Thunder win this series that, it's in their hands. I think their biggest issue is going to be some of this depth that they're losing, but we'll see what happens in regards to that. I did mention, everybody knows obviously at this point, the Knicks advanced to the NBA Finals. Let's see where the Knicks, for the first time since 1999, they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers last night, 130-93. Jalen Brunson named Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Just impressive, man. 11 straight wins for the New York Knicks in the postseason since they were down 2-1 against the Hawks in the first round. Since they were down 2-1, they win 3 in a row against the Hawks. They sweep the Sixers 4-0. They sweep the Cavs 4-0. That's as good as it gets. They beat the Hawks in a closeout game by 51, the Sixers by 30 in a closeout game, and then the Cavs by 37. So just, again, wildly impressive what the New York Knicks are doing. All right, let's read a couple of comments here, and then we're going to call it a day. I appreciate you guys being here today, obviously part of the show, and shout out to Mark Medina for being a part of the show as well. 9 o'clock, I do got to bounce out of here, so I'm going to read a couple of comments, and then we'll call it a day. Really don't understand, people. How do you have Luka Doncic on your team and still be miserable and not enjoy this team or this time? Other fan bases would kill to have a player like that in their favorite team. Yeah, I think, listen, I enjoyed watching Luka Doncic play. I think anybody that was frustrated with the Lakers is just kind of this knowing that you can't hang with the elite. And it's now, in the front office's hands to try to figure out how they're going to change that. Hopefully Lakers have a solid offseason, free agency and trades. Please, Rob, be successful. Okay, last one here. I have no faith that Rob Pelinka put together a competitive team or will put together a competitive team around Luka Doncic. All right, we don't have the answer to that, so I have no idea what will happen as well. Back on tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Thank you very much for being here. We'll react. I'm working on either a Thunder or a Spurs guest, hopefully in the next couple of days, because I do want to talk a little bit more about that series. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Shout out to Eric Scalar, who's producing the show. Thank you to Mark Medina for coming on as well. Please make sure to subscribe and like the shows in the channel. Greatly appreciate that. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.